I am here with Avril Daly, who is the head of Retina International, and I am proud to say that our foundation is now a full member of Retina International, and it's a real pleasure to be able to help represent our global community through Retina International. Avril, why don't you tell us a little bit about how we can fit in with Retina International and what you're trying to do?
Well, the important thing to say is that you're a patient organization and your focus is on research and innovation, trying to find treatments and cures for choroideremia. And our purpose as an organization has always been to support that endeavor, that initiative, regardless of which IORD or which retinal condition, just to support organizations to work together on what's common to them. So you may be investigating different types of conditions, but really at the end of the day, how we get access to the therapies, first of all, how we support the research,
right?
How we provide our own expertise as patients to clinicians and researchers as they develop endpoints and patient-reported outcome measures to support the development of clinical trials, and then ultimately how we work within the regulatory space to get access to the therapies as they emerge, is going to require a very big push, let's just say, and
right.
It's going to require a lot of collaboration and a lot of work together to really deal with the challenges that are the same challenges for all of us, whereas our conditions may be different, the challenges are the same. And the bigger the voice and the more consensus we have around issues, the more we'll be heard, and we're more likely to get where we want to go.
Well,
so that's important.
Absolutely. And I was part of the Retina International Task Force on genetic testing.
Correct, yeah.
And maybe you can give us a quick highlight of what your study, the final outcomes were.
Yes, so we undertook a landscape study in 2021, 2022, looking at the reality of access to genetic testing. We looked at it from a clinical perspective in Europe, Israel and Australia, and from a patient perspective more globally. We did a survey of our members. That survey was developed with likes of yourself developing what the question should be and how we would get it and disseminate it to our community. We had incredible feedback. What we learned from the study was that the clinicians thought that it was easy to access a diagnosis through genetic testing because they knew that the systems were in place. But the patients, on average, were going to about 5 different clinical settings to get a referral for a genetic test.
Yes.
And there was real challenges and the different types of testing, whether it was costing money or not, where it was on the national health systems and all of these kinds of things.
And whether or not they even had a genetic counselor to fully explain.
Hugely.
Yes.
I mean, the diversity we learned between different countries on how a genetic test is accessed, but also how that information is delivered back to the patient and the family was was not as consistent as we had expected it to be. So with our task force, we got together when we got the results of the studies, and we were able to work with our global patient community to look at the data and say, well, where are the policy actions that we have to take in order to be able to change this reality and make genetic testing an essential requirement for those of us living, especially with IORDs, where we have such a heterogeneity and over 300 genes being described. We need to know. And what we want to do is demonstrate that, in certain respects in certain countries, they won't give you access to a genetic diagnosis unless there's a treatment.
Right.
And we say retinal degenerations are actionable diseases in the absence of treatment because we can make decisions about our future if we know what our genes are, right? When we can make decisions about every aspect of our lives, and that's something that we need to demonstrate. So what we're doing is working on a consensus-driven approach to policy that is universally applicable. So it's not just something that we need in the US, something we need in Europe, something we need in South Africa, something we need in Australia. All of the elements may be slightly different in different countries, but the need is the same, and we just need to focus in on the fact that there's a general lack of genetic counselors, which causes a roadblock. There is a challenge in the future of clinical geneticists.
Yes.
There is a challenge in ensuring that ophthalmologists, eye doctors, are informed about genetics, and there's also a challenge in ensuring that optometrists and allied healthcare professionals are aware of this so that they know where to go, know where to refer. But ultimately, we have to make sure that governments understand that genetic testing is not a luxury, that it is a necessity for this community, and it's different and needs to be, pardon the pun, but viewed through a different lens.
Exactly.
And we've a lot of genes and genomics strategies happening now in the world, and governments are looking at genes and genomics, and we need to make sure that they understand what they're legislating for into the future. How things are going to evolve into the future and not just the now. And that's going to take all our voices. And so our landscape study is now going for publication. We hope it'll be published in a high impact journal, and that will help us, again, with the community at large, to educate on the importance of this issue and why we need to work together. Because it's really critical. I mean, it's a bridge to the other side, isn't it? I mean, if we don't know our genetic diagnosis,
right,
we can't access trials, we can't inform research either.
And for many of the communities, it's an amazing line to hope.
Yeah.
If you can know your specific disease,
yes,
and see the work that is there, or even know that it may be gene agnostic advances in science, but
correct,
you're able to better key into what possible treatments as a patient you might be able to look for or aim to get access for.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you stopping by.
Thank you.
We will be participating as a new full member of Retina International in their General Assembly Congress virtually this June.
Yes.
And then next year we'll be meeting in Dublin.
That's
so
right.
I look forward to it.
That's right. Look forward to seeing you in Dublin the 5th to the 8th of June 2024 in Dublin.
That sounds great. Well, thank you, Avril, so much for coming by.
Thank you so much. Thanks a lot.
And we'll have more from AAO here in New Orleans. Thanks.